Peace, everyone. Greetings. Chief Yuya here. And of course, bringing you first of the month, seventh day insight for the Anu Nation. And for those of you who are coming to get a word to edify you, I'm here to share to the best of my ability. So I'm willing that you all are having a wonderful seventh day and that you are spending time with those you love and those that you can call family and not just relatives. Okay? So I wanted to share some things, or one thing. I am coming from a gathering. I'm speaking up because I know there is a bit of wind noise and a couple other things going on around me right now, and I don't have my lapel mic or anything to block out the noise around me, so willfully you'll be able to hear me with no issue. But I'm coming from a funeral service. Well, literally I had to go back to my home village to support my aunt, and her son transitioned, and today we had 6 funerals in our village. 6 funerals going on at the same exact time. So, you know, it's a season for a lot of transition, not only where my home is, but also where I work in headquarters. There's a lot of transition that's happening right now. But what I wanted to share about was something that was related to rest. You know, a lot of times we pride ourselves in our constant movement or our constant hustle, because you know, movement is likened to life, and there is a truism in that. You know, movement is important. And a lot of times, you know, as Nas said, I never sleep because sleep is the cousin of death. You know, so a lot of times when we are in a resting state, we start to associate it with its correlation to death, to cessation, to stagnation. And in a very abusive way, we begin to pride ourselves in our constant movement and our inability to pull back. So today I sat with my auntie because she, every time she saw her son, he was only 25, he was very young. Every time she saw him in the casket or you know, she couldn't take it. And she has high blood pressure, so we had to remove her, you know, and she had to sit at the family house. So I sat with her at the family house, and you know, we built and we talked, and there was different levels of arresting that happened. In her compound, she doesn't allow the language of Oyimbo or Oruni, or what some of you may call English or Brafo. At least not for me. I am not allowed to speak English. So we speak the native tongue in the yard, which is great because it allows a certain cessation and resting of thought. When I am not trying to find a commonality with people around me, using a language that is not native to my own genealogy. So, you know, the idea of rest, pulling away, knowing when your work has been done is important. Of course, today on our 7th day sabbatical, that is something that we do or should do. It's not really optional, though some will they'll make it an option, you know, depending on what their employer may offer to them or what they feel like doing. But why is resting so important? Okay, so I remember many years ago having a dialogue with a good brother of mine who was this is before like we use terms like woke or conscious, but he was on it back then. He was on it heavy, and what we would call, I guess, occult teachings. We'll say that, but also culture. And he said something to me one day. He said, why would the God of the universe need to take a break? We were giving hell to some, at the time, some Hebrews who had come into our cipher and were seeking to instruct us. And he was like, listen, I'm going to show you why what you're talking about doesn't make any sense. And he just started hitting them with certain things, certain questions, right? And he was stumping them. But the problem was, see, the way I am, if I have a disagreement with family, we're not going to work that out in public. In public, we are a unified force, but, when we get back home, I might say, hey, man, that wasn't right. So when we got out of their presence, or more so when they got out of our cipher, I was like, yo, I don't think that one was right, bro. And he was like, what you talking about? I was like, yo, just because somebody rests, it doesn't mean that they need the rest. And you're looking at rest in terms of a humanistic form. And I gave him an example. I said, you can be arrested, but still have energy and still want to fight. You could be arrested for assault and still want to assault, but someone has put an arrest or a cessation to your movement. So I said, so for on the seventh day, for that God to rest, it doesn't mean that God needed a rest, because there was no real evidence that God actually rested outside of saying that God rested. And I still hold to that, right? I still hold to that as far as what's right and exact. You see, the creation was happened over a period of sixes. Now, I don't want to say 6 days, because it really wasn't 6 days, right? You have to learn to break things down. So instead of days, let's say cycles, because it will be easier for you when we dig into deeper information. You'll be able to better understand why we're saying cycles instead of days. This is for my new people. For everybody else, if you want to say days, that's fine. It's cool. You'll still be, in alignment, right? So the idea of movement for 6 cycles and then rest on the 7th cycle is a divine thing. You see the 7 as a moment of completion, whether we're looking at the 7th note in a scale, or we're looking at 7 colors, 7 primary colors, 7 days in a strong. I mean, we could just go on. The 7 is a very common thing. The 7 open portals in your head. There's a 7 that's common. And the idea there is not so much that on the 7th cycle we are seeking for a break. On the 7th cycle, after we have done 6 cycles of external work, on the 7th cycle, we are now allow for internal reflection. So there is a cessation of physical movement, but there is an exciting of internal spiritual movement on the 7th cycle. You see, so when we neglect that and we plow through it, or we work through it, we are neglecting the spiritual tabernacle, ourselves, our internal. We are removing ourselves from our divine clock. Now, of course, on Sabbath or 7th day or Sabbath or Saturday, as some call it, we take that day. But the truth is, that's really not the day. it moves. It's not always that day. Um, if you're following the calendar properly, it moves around. But here's the most important thing, even more than that. 6 days of external, 1 day of internal. That's, if you take nothing, take that. That's the mathematics of it. And the numbers never lie. That's the mathematics. You know, even many years ago in France, they tried to do a 10-day plus 11-day, where instead of having, you know, like in America, you'll have like 5 days you work and then 2 days where you're off. In that place, they attempted 10 days where they would work, and then on the 11th day they would take a break, and they said it threw everybody out of whack to the point that people were developing sicknesses. So you start to see that clock, or that cyclical clock that was given 6 on 1 off, is actually based around not only your spiritual matrix, but your physical and health matrix. Now, a lot of times it's difficult for us to take any time. Even resting at night is very difficult for people. And that is a sign of revolution. And I know often when we say revolution, we think of it in a positive way. But this is your mind or your brain revolting against your spirit. Your spirit needs that time, because that is your time for spiritual sabbatical, when you rest. And what happens is your mind now wages a revolt sometimes. And let's say if there's something that you were working on before you lay down to rest, you will find that even in your dream state, you are still working on it, right? And what that is your brain trying to creep in to the jurisdiction of the spirit. It's not good. It's not a good thing, you see. That internal revolution is the brain's egoic way of reminding you of the fear of change, which is the fear of death. So when you begin to rest, the mind, or the brain rather, will create an association with death. And you say, I don't want to rest, I want to stay up, I want to keep working. So if you happen to fall asleep, if you happen to doze off, the brain still actively says, no, I'm going to find my space. Because if I give the spirit too much time in this restful state, this person will awaken changed. If they awaken changed, they will now impose change upon my structure, which I can't have, because I equate change to death. Now, if your brain does that on the subconscious level, just when it comes time to sleep and your 24-hour cycle, what do you think it does to you in your 7th-day cycle, when it really has time to build up its argument for the 7th day? Oh, you know, this isn't this isn't ancient Zion. You don't have a day like that. Oh, somebody gonna pay your bills? Yeah, I know it says in the Anu way that you're supposed to take your time and so forth and so on, but you know, Chief Yuya wrote that, and Chief Yuya, he owns businesses, so he doesn't understand my situation. When's the last time he had to answer to a boss? You know, he's not gonna pay my light bill, he's not gonna pay my mortgage, he's not gonna pay my rent. You see, time is the friend of the ego. And the ego will begin to build its story and to build its argument against you. You know, so when we think about the beautiful divinity of rest, what we are really contemplating on and we're reflecting on is the victorious aspect of our divine battle. Like I said, your brain rages a war. It's contemplation. that seeks to keep you always awake and never taking a moment for rest. And what are you contemplating? Your own mortality. When you are working, you don't want to break. Why is it? Well, because there's only but so many hours in the day. You don't know when you're going to die. You know, tomorrow is promised to no one, so forth and so on and so on. So what does that mean? I have to keep slaving away, because the contemplation of my own end keeps me in a non-stop space. Contemplation keeps me up at night. When I know I should be resting, I should be allowing my brain waves to change. I should be allowing the detoxing of my cells. Instead of that, allowing that to happen, well, what do you do at night? I just stay up and think. You stay up and contemplate. Contemplation can be your worst enemy if you don't know how to bind it within its own jurisdiction. It will take over in spaces where it doesn't belong. So let's think about for a moment the Sabbath and why we should guard it and why we should keep it hallowed, sacred. Because during that time, we know that we have done our work. When we have not done our work, we seek to continue moving. The reason why on 7th day, on sabbatical, you still work, it's not just because you are a slave. It's not just because you are weak. It's not just because you are a sucker to a 9 to 5. It's not just because you have auctioned off your time for fiat currency. It's not just those things. Don't feel bad. It's not just that. It's because you haven't fulfilled your purpose. You see, the reason why Elohim was able to rest on the 7th day was because Elohim had completed purpose in the 6th day. Because think about this. If purpose had not been completed, on the 7th day there would have been no light. On the 7th day, flowers would not have bloomed. In essence, the earth would have stood still. Because the reason I said earlier when I was speaking that we truly have no evidence that there was a cessation of movement from the Most High, because there was still movement in the Most High's works. Everything kept going. Everything kept working. So on your 7th day, what causes have you put into motion that allow you to say, I can relax and know that everything is still working? You see, now that is the difference, family, between hustling and doing business. Right now it's 7th day, and the house of Anu, which is my house, my homestead, in which I am master over, is still making money. Am I working? No. Are my children working? No. Are my employees working? No. Is my harem in totality working? No. Are we making a profit? Yes. The food that I have planted in our lands, is it still growing? Yes, it is. Because over my 6th cycle, I have done my work. So now on the 7th cycle, like anything, you know, when you're working out, you need a day of rest, because when you rest, your muscles actually grow. Your muscles don't grow when you're exerting them. Rest is very important. You can overtrain sometimes, depending on what kind of workout you do. Some workouts you can do every day, honestly. You do calisthenics every day. But when you're sleeping, you're still resting. That's why you'll still wake up with a pump. There's still blood in those areas. It's still active. It's still working. So on that seventh day, are you still pumped? Or are you like, man, I can't wait to sundown because I didn't do what I needed to do Yom Rishon, or first day through sixth day, or Sunday through Friday? I didn't do what I was supposed to do. So I can't wait till the sun goes down, man, because I got stuff that's lingering. See, when you hustle, you can't walk away from the hustle and still make money off the hustle. You have to constantly be hustling. You remember that song? Every day I'm hustling. You have to hustle every day. When you have a business, you don't even have to be there. The business will run itself if it's structured properly. If through your 6th cycle you did things in proper order. See, that's the beauty of the creation story. It tells us the actual order in doing things. And if you pay attention, each day corresponds to another. One day we'll get into that. You may have read, this was done on this day, that was done on that way, and you might have just thought, well, okay, that's just the days Yahuwah decided to do things. No, it's a formula. It's a mathematical formula. It shows you what corresponds to what. You do this, then you do that. You do this, and you do that. You do this, then you do that. Then you rest. If you do it in that order, resting is not an issue. And resting, again, is what? I go internal. I go inside. I'm not physically working. You see, so we may deliver and do our new work on 7th day because we're doing internal work. We're doing the spiritual work. Midnight tonight, I have an appointment. Not midnight, but after sundown tonight, I have an appointment, work. Then, just to give you an idea, tomorrow at 7 a.m., I have to meet 3 of my workers. We have to take a trip somewhere to go handle a land dispute that I'm currently going through right now. Someone is trying to encroach upon our new property. So I have to go in. I'm going, not with my goons, but I'm going with a couple of my guys to settle that situation. Then when I come back from that, I have consultations. I have a lot of paperwork that I have to do. I have some research. It's a whole bunch of stuff. I can't even list everything at this point. My point is is that the movement and the motion continues, right? But it's scheduled and it's lined up hour by hour, and it's mathematically put in place in a way from first day to 6th day, to the point that my formula is so tight that on 7th day I'm good. Everything's been set in motion. Everything, I'm good. So for instance, I'm taking my mason with me tomorrow to go deal with this land situation, right? Now while I'm over there talking to them, he's going to be putting up I'm having a new fence built. He's going to be building that fence over the next strong or so. I won't be there, right? Setting things in motion. So 7th day comes, he knows he's not allowed to work 7th day. None of my work is work 7th day. But he would put so many things in motion that he can kick it on 7th day. Okay, I think maybe we had a little freeze there, so I just stopped it just in case, so I wouldn't keep going for no reason. But like I said, we're setting things in motion, which allows us the dignity of our 7th day rest. It is dignified. And to not be able to rest on your 7th day is a true sign of poverty. Not just physical poverty, but spiritual poverty. And as we say in the Anu way, poverty is a plague. Poverty is a sickness. So that's something that we avoid at all costs. So I wanted to share that. I wanted to share that idea with you, that the Sabbath or your sabbatical or your 7th day, you don't need to, some people will make big discussions around what day. It's Sunday, It's Saturday. That's not important. It really isn't, to be honest with you. It's not too important. Don't do it on Sunday. And there's a reason behind that. Maybe we'll get into that another time. But it is what we would call Saturday. It is, and it was changed for very devilish and devious and evil and colonialistic reasons. That's why you shouldn't do it on Sunday, right? Because then you're falling into the clock and the calendar of your oppressor. But if you pick another day, if you say every 7 hours I'm going to take a break, 1 hour, you could do that. That's fine. You're looking at the mathematics of things, right? Which again we'll get into later. I don't want you to look at things from a new age perspective. Sometimes people are quick to minimize things or diminish them, and they change the meaning totally because everybody wants to have their own theory. They want to be known for their own theory. And a lot of times that's what messes us up. You know, people trying to create their own name and their own theories end up making up stuff. And what they make up is not only is it not valid, but it's actually harmful to your journey. So our ancestors gave us a beautiful clock. They understood the movements of the heavens. They understood the movements of the Creator. And they understood how physically, our physiognomy, or physiology, the study of that, was a study of how we mirrored the body of the heavens, or the body of Yah, or the body of the Creator, the body of the divine. And when we push beyond that because of human doctrine and human frailty, we end up becoming less divine. We become more human and more carnal and less ethereal, which is not the goal. The goal is to to floss the macabre. We want to floss our light body. We want to expand the light body, or the macabre. That's the goal, not to enrich and embellish upon the lower carnal heavy body or dark body. We've fallen into darkness to rise up to a greater abundance of light. That's the goal, willfully. I hope that's your goal, right? So our greatest movement should be internal on Sabbath. Your meditation is crucial on Sabbath. It's crucial. And I know so many people struggle with meditation. I don't know how to meditate. I can't meditate. That's because you don't have a real connection with the Creator. And maybe you don't want one. A lot of people don't want one. I understand that. That's just how it is. Maybe you really don't want a connection with the Creator. What would be so scary about silence? What would be so scary about doing things the right way and not making them up because of how you feel? What's so scary about that? So yeah, so on this day, I went to my auntie's son's funeral to provide spiritual support, and to give my energy to that, to give my energy there. She was very surprised. She didn't think I was going to come because of Sabbath. She was very happy, very, very happy. Everyone in the home village, because they're not used to seeing me on that day. So they were very happy to see me on that day. But I'm doing the work. I'm doing the spiritual work. So it's different. And there's internal meditation and work that happens. So guard the Sabbath and keep it holy. This is not a long message. It's a brief one. I believe it's brief, but it's vital because so many of you disrespect it. And in disrespecting it, you're disrespecting the Most High, and the Most High in you that is seeking to be uncaged by your strange, foreign, human customs. The seventh cycle is your cycle to unleash yourself as a deity. No different than how when you break through the seven seals, you become to process the world as a deity. You're no longer beholden to your seven senses, to what tastes good, what smells good, what feels good, what sounds good. You're no longer, or what looks good. You're not beholden to that. You only have a fright mechanism through what you see. Imagine that for a moment. Imagine if you gave yourself a 7th-day sabbatical to not see things of the world. It is true. If you heard a snake, it wouldn't scare you. If you heard a dog barking, it doesn't really scare you. The part that scares you, because what's connected to your optic nerve. So we're talking about neuroscience. So I'm not just talking gibberish. But if you ever take time to study the brain and the mind and brain behavior, your mechanisms for fear within the brain, they come from your retina, from your optic nerve. They tie right back into that part of the brain. So what you see is what triggers a fear response, or what we call a flight or fright response. Imagine if you chose not to see human things or worldly things on the 7th day, not to hear worldly things on the 7th day, smell them, taste them, feel them, and you shut down the cages of neurology within your own brain. You didn't allow it to have dominance over you in those times. Just imagine that for a moment. What could you then be? I will leave that to you to think about. I will leave that to you to reflect on. It's an important thing to reflect on. So, I want to give love and respect to all of you. All of you who are holding position strong and recognizing that there is a deeper science to uncover. You can't see it from here. Like the Nyami, learning to master and understand why a symbol represents itself as it does. What is it manifesting itself to be? And being obedient to that. That was something very beautiful that was shared last night in the Shema call with Akoti Akuya and I'm not Akuya, I'm sorry, Akoti Precious and Akoti Deidre. They were speaking about courting. And one of the things that Akoti or Ima Precious said was that you cannot build a nation without families, and you have to trust that your jag life, right? So it's the same thing here. Are you expressing your divinity in a way that has been given to you that is valuable, so that you are doing the right thing by your spirit? Or are you leaning to your own finite understanding and not trusting what has been tried and proven over millions of years? So as for me, as the question was asked last night, are you open to courting and why? Yeah, I'm open to courting because I'm always open to see who the Most High, my High Jegna, will bring into my cipher to add greater value and to assist in fulfilling the Creator's call and purpose on my life. I will be open to courting women probably into my deathbed. And I'm in the prime of my life still. So there's no shutting down Yah's purpose for me and Yah's movement, and most importantly for me, Yah's militancy. There's no shutting that down for me, right? And even on 7th day, I'm not shutting down. I'm just going inward. I'm going silent and inward and communing with others who also desire to go inward. So with that, tide is getting stronger, and I'm speaking very loud, which I don't like to. So my throat is starting to feel the burden of loud talk. So I will you have a peaceful day today, and that you take time to enjoy those who you care about and you love. You take time to help someone, to love someone, and to protect someone. I give honor to all those who are true Anu, who are walking the path, and who are truly here to add value and not just to hide the fact that they are liabilities. All right, everyone. Be well. Chief Yuya out.